Providence Municipal Court. A young woman draped in designer labels worth more than most people's cars steps before Judge Frank Caprio for a simple parking violation. What should take 3 minutes becomes the most viral courtroom moment of the decade. With cameras rolling, she utters 3 words that will change her life forever. I own you. She makes a decision that will haunt her for the rest of her life. The courtroom will never forget what happens next. Neither will she. When did a last name become permission to disrespect those who serve justice? Before we reveal how Judge Caprio responded to those 3 devastating words, hit that subscribe button if you believe respect should never be for sale. And comment below where in the world you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to share what happens next. She enters wearing a cream Chanel suit, tailored so precisely it looks painted on. A Cartier bracelet catches the fluorescent lights with every gesture. Her heels click like a countdown on the tile floor, sharp and deliberate. Everything about her screams money. Everything about her posture screams entitlement. Her sunglasses stay on despite being indoors. Her phone stays in her hand despite the bailiff's earlier announcement. She doesn't look at the people in the gallery, doesn't acknowledge the court staff. She walks to the defendant's table like she's walking into a restaurant where she's a regular. Judge Frank Caprio sits at the bench the way he always does, reading glasses perched on his nose. A gentle expression that has comforted thousands. His white hair and kind eyes make him look like everybody's favorite grandfather. He's heard thousands of cases in this very room, shown mercy to single mothers who couldn't afford their fines, veterans struggling with PTSD, students who made one mistake. His courtroom runs on compassion, but it's built on a foundation of respect. The prosecutor, Maria Santos, sits ready with her file. She's seen Judge Caprio handle difficult defendants before. She's confident this will be routine. She has no idea what's coming. When the young woman approaches the bench, she doesn't make eye contact, doesn't remove her sunglasses, doesn't say, "Your Honor." She just stands there, weight shifted to one hip, checking her phone. Judge Caprio looks up from his paperwork. He smiles warmly, the way he always does. "Good morning, miss. Could you please state your name for the record?" She barely looks up from her phone. Her voice is flat, bored. "Do you know who my father is?" The court clerk's fingers pause over her keyboard. The bailiff, a 20-year veteran named Rodriguez, shifts his weight slightly. Even the few people in the gallery sense something is off. Judge Caprio removes his glasses slowly. He's been doing this long enough to know what that question usually means, but he gives her the benefit of the doubt. He always does. "I'm sure your father is a fine man, miss. But right now, I need your name for the court record." She sighs dramatically, as if he's asked her to recite the Constitution backward. "Victoria. Victoria Ashford." Already, the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Judge Caprio puts his glasses back on and looks down at the file before him. His voice remains patient, professional. "Miss Ashford, you're here today regarding a parking citation. According to the officer's report, you parked in a designated handicapped space outside the Riverside Shopping Plaza on October 15th. The space was clearly marked with both ground painting and a vertical sign. You were observed inside the boutique for approximately 1 hour and 7 minutes. Do you have anything you'd like to say about this?" Victoria shifts her weight again. Her phone finally goes into her designer purse, but the movement is irritated, like she's being forced to put away a toy. "That spot was the only one available. I was only going to be a minute." Judge Caprio nods slowly. He's heard variations of this excuse 1,000 times. He keeps his voice gentle. "I understand parking can be challenging, especially at busy shopping centers. However, the officer's report indicates you were inside for over an hour. And these handicapped spaces, they're protected by law for people with mobility challenges who—" Victoria interrupts him. Actually interrupts him. "An hour? A minute? Does it really matter? It's not like anyone needed it. The lot was practically empty." The court clerk looks up. Prosecutor Santos closes her pen. This is already going sideways. Judge Caprio leans back slightly in his chair. He removes his glasses again. Anyone who watches his show knows this gesture. It means he's shifting from routine processing to active teaching mode. Miss Ashford, it matters because the law doesn't make exceptions based on convenience or personal judgment. Those spaces exist for a specific reason. They provide dignity and access to people who, "This is a waste of my time." She says it clearly, loudly, not under her breath, not to herself. She says it directly, looking up at the bench for the first time, her sunglasses finally removed to reveal eyes cold with impatience. "This is a waste of my time. My father's lawyers could buy this courthouse." The courtroom stirs. An older woman in the gallery gasps softly. Bailiff Rodriguez takes one step forward, then stops, waiting for Judge Caprio's signal. Prosecutor Santos sets down her file completely. She's been a prosecutor for 12 years. She's heard defendants lie, cry, plead, and occasionally get angry. But she's never heard someone threaten to purchase the courthouse. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change. His voice remains steady, but something shifts in his tone. It's still kind, but now there's steel underneath. "Miss Ashford, I understand you may be frustrated. Court appearances can be inconvenient. But I'm trying to show you respect here. I'd appreciate the same courtesy in return." Victoria laughs. Actually laughs. It's a short, sharp sound that cuts through the courtroom like glass breaking. "Respect? You work for the city. My family donates millions to this city. We fund the parks. We sponsor the hospital wing. We, Miss Ashford, probably pay more in taxes than you make in a year." The older woman in the gallery stands up and walks out. She can't bear to watch anymore. A younger man with a veteran's cap pulls out his phone, not to record, but to text someone. "You won't believe what's happening in Caprio's court right now." Judge Caprio takes a breath. It's the kind of breath a teacher takes before explaining something to a child for the 10th time. His voice is still controlled, still professional, but everyone in the room can hear the shift. "Your father's contributions to this city are appreciated. They help many people. But in this courtroom, everyone is equal under the law. A parking violation is a parking violation. Whether you're..." Victoria leans forward, both hands on the defendant's table. Her voice rises, no longer bored, now actively hostile. "Equal? You think we're equal?" She laughs again, louder this time. "I could have you removed with one phone call. One phone call to the mayor, to the city council, to anyone who matters." Bailiff Rodriguez's hand moves slightly toward his belt. The court clerk has stopped typing entirely. Prosecutor Santos is frozen, pen hovering over her notepad. Judge Caprio opens his mouth to respond, to de-escalate, to find the patience he's famous for. But Victoria isn't finished. She straightens up, looks directly at Judge Frank Caprio, and speaks 3 words that will echo through courtrooms for years to come. "I own you." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. The kind of silence that rings in your ears. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. The kind of silence that feels like the world just stopped spinning to see what happens next. The courtroom gasps. The sound is audible, collective, involuntary. The veteran with the phone actually drops it, fumbling to catch it before it hits the floor. The court clerk's mouth falls open. Prosecutor Santos's eyes go wide, and she looks at Judge Caprio like she's watching a car crash in slow motion. Bailiff Rodriguez takes another step forward, hand now fully on his belt, body tensed, ready to intervene if things escalate further. But Judge Caprio doesn't move. He doesn't stand up, doesn't raise his voice, doesn't gesture wildly. He just sits there, absolutely still, looking at Victoria Ashford with an expression that's impossible to read. Victoria, for her part, seems to realize something has shifted. Her confidence wavers. Just slightly. Just for a second. She swallows hard, and her hand moves unconsciously to her purse, like she's thinking about her phone, about calling someone, about making this go away. But it's too late for that. The silence stretches. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. Finally, Judge Caprio moves. He carefully places his glasses on the bench in front of him. He folds his hands, and when he speaks, his voice is quiet. Terrifyingly quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you lean forward to hear. The kind of quiet that carries more weight than any shout. Miss Ashford. Just those two words. Just her name. But the way he says it makes Victoria take a small step backward. Miss Ashford, in 40 years on this bench, I have heard every excuse imaginable, every plea, every justification, every sob story. I've listened to single mothers explain why they couldn't afford to register their car. Veterans with PTSD who drove without a license because they were having a crisis. Students who made one stupid mistake and couldn't figure out how to fix it. His voice remains quiet, but it fills the entire courtroom. I've shown mercy to people who could barely afford the bus ticket to get here. I've reduced fines, waived fees, suspended sentences. I've held babies while their parents filled out paperwork. I've cried with families who lost everything. He pauses. The pause is deliberate, heavy with meaning. But never, not once in 40 years has anyone stood in my courtroom and told me they own me. Victoria opens her mouth. Nothing comes out. Her hands grip the edge of the defendant's table, knuckles white. Judge Caprio's voice rises now. Not to a shout. He doesn't shout. But it grows stronger, more powerful, filled with controlled fury that's somehow more frightening than anger. You don't own me, Miss Ashford. Your father doesn't own me. No amount of money, no amount of donations, no amount of influence owns the dignity of this court. Do you understand what you've just done? I didn't mean. You didn't mean it? He leans forward now, and his eyes are blazing with something that looks like disappointment mixed with determination. You didn't mean it? Let me tell you what you did mean. You walked in here believing your last name gave you immunity from the law. You parked in a handicapped space, not because you needed it, not because it was an emergency, but because you wanted it, and you thought your convenience mattered more than someone else's necessity. Victoria tries to speak again. He holds up one hand. I'm not finished. When confronted with this violation, instead of accepting responsibility, instead of showing even basic respect for this institution, you threatened me. You threatened an officer of the court. You declared, in front of witnesses, that you own me. The words hang in the air like smoke. Do you know what this courtroom represents, Miss Ashford? It's not just a room. It's not just a job. This courtroom represents the idea that we are all equal under the law. That justice doesn't care about your bank account. That a billionaire's daughter and a homeless veteran stand on the same ground when they stand before this bench. His voice drops again, becomes almost gentle, which somehow makes it more powerful. And the moment you said, I own you, you didn't just disrespect me. You declared war on that principle. You told everyone in this room that you believe money can purchase justice. That the law is for sale to the highest bidder. Victoria is crying now, tears running down her face, smearing her expensive makeup. But Judge Caprio isn't done. I've dedicated my entire career to proving that principle wrong, to showing that compassion and fairness can coexist, to demonstrating that this court serves everyone equally. And you just tried to destroy that with 3 words. He picks up his gavel. The sound of wood against wood seems impossibly loud in the silent courtroom. So let me be absolutely clear. You do not own me. You do not own this court. And you are about to learn what happens when someone tries. Judge Caprio straightens in his chair. His voice becomes formal, official, the voice of law itself. Miss Victoria Ashford, I am holding you in contempt of court. Bailiff Rodriguez. Bailiff Rodriguez moves forward immediately. He's been waiting for this. His face is professionally neutral, but there's a set to his jaw that suggests he's been wanting to do this for the last 10 minutes. Reality crashes into Victoria like a wave. Wait. Her voice cracks, high and panicked. Wait, Your Honor. Please. I'm sorry. You're sorry now. Judge Caprio's voice is still quiet, but there's no mercy in it yet. You're sorry now that there are consequences. You weren't sorry when you took that parking space. You weren't sorry when you dismissed this court. You weren't sorry when you told me you own me. You're sorry because Bailiff Rodriguez is walking toward you. Please, I made a mistake. Victoria is fully sobbing now, mascara running, expensive suit rumpled as she grips the table for support. My father he'll please, Your Honor. Your father isn't here, Miss Ashford. You are. You made these choices. You spoke these words, and now you will face the consequences. Bailiff Rodriguez reaches her side. He doesn't touch her yet, just stands there, waiting for Judge Caprio's final word. Judge Caprio takes a breath. When he speaks again, his voice is softened slightly. Not much, but enough to show that beneath the fury, there's still the compassionate judge who holds babies and cries with families. You will spend the next 72 hours in county detention, Miss Ashford. 72 hours to reflect on what respect means, on what it means to be equal under the law, on what it means to be held accountable for your words and actions. Victoria makes a sound that's half sob, half gasp. 72, I can't, please. Judge Caprio holds up his hand again. However, I'm going to give you an opportunity. One opportunity. When you're released, you will write a 2,000-word essay on why handicapped parking laws exist. You will research the stories of people who need those spaces. You will interview someone who uses a mobility device and explain in detail how your actions affected their ability to live their life with dignity. Victoria nods frantically, desperately. Yes, I'll do it. I'll do anything. I'm not finished. Judge Caprio's voice hardens again. You will complete that essay within 1 week of your release. You will submit it to this court for review, and then you will return to this courtroom and read it aloud. In front of me, in front of Prosecutor Santos, in front of anyone from the public who wants to attend. He pauses. Lets that sink in. And if that essay is anything less than thoughtful, thorough, and sincere, if I detect even a hint that you had someone else write it, or that you're simply going through the motions, that 72 hours becomes 30 days. Do you understand? Victoria can barely speak through her tears. I understand. I'll write it, I promise. Judge Caprio nods to Bailiff Rodriguez. Take her. Victoria's hands are cuffed behind her back. The metal clicks into place, and she makes a small sound of distress. Her expensive purse falls to the floor, contents spilling phone, credit cards, lipstick, keys to what's probably a luxury car rolling across the courtroom floor. Please, I'm sorry. But Bailiff Rodriguez is already guiding her toward the side door. She twists back, trying to look at Judge Caprio one more time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Please. The door closes behind her. The sound echoes. The courtroom sits in stunned silence. For a long moment, nobody moves. Judge Caprio sits at the bench, looking down at his hands. The court clerk stares at her keyboard. Prosecutor Santos has her hand over her mouth. Then, something happens. An older man in the gallery stands up. He's wearing a Vietnam veteran's cap, and his hands shake slightly as he grips the bench in front of him. Your Honor. His voice is rough, emotional. If I may. Judge Caprio looks up. His expression is still heavy, but he nods. Yes, sir. Please. The veteran takes a breath. My wife uses a wheelchair. Has for 15 years. Since her accident. We've had to circle parking lots for 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour, because someone like that girl took the handicap spot. Someone who just didn't feel like walking an extra 50 feet. His voice breaks slightly. We've missed appointments, missed events. Once, we had to leave entirely because there was no space and she couldn't make the walk. And every time, I think about the person who took that spot. I think about how they probably never even considered what they were doing. How they probably don't even remember parking there. Judge Caprio nods slowly. His eyes are red. Thank you for sharing that, sir. This is exactly why these laws exist. They're not suggestions. They're not conveniences. They're protections for people who need them to participate in daily life. The veteran sits down. Another person stands. A woman in her 30s, wearing business casual, holding a teaching textbook. Your Honor, I'm a high school teacher. Miss Chen, I teach civics, actually. Judge Caprio manages a small smile. I appreciate educators more than you know, Miss Chen. Please. She clutches her textbook tighter. If my students spoke to anyone the way she spoke to you, I'd call their parents immediately. I'd send them to the principal. I'd make sure they understood that behavior was unacceptable. But who calls her parents? She's an adult, yes, but clearly no one has ever taught her that money doesn't buy immunity from respect. Her voice grows stronger. I spend every day teaching kids about the justice system, about how laws exist to protect everyone equally, about how courts are supposed to be the great equalizer. And then they see people like her walk in and try to buy their way out. It makes my job impossible. Judge Caprio leans forward. Miss Chen, you've touched on something critical. This isn't about punishment for punishment's sake. This is about teaching a lesson that her privilege has shielded her from learning. In this court, a billionaire's daughter and a single mother pay the same fine for the same offense. That's not cruelty. That's equality. A young man stands now, college age, wearing a university sweatshirt. Your Honor, I'm a law student. I've watched your videos online. I come to your courtroom sometimes to observe because you show us what justice with compassion looks like. Judge Caprio nods. I'm honored. What's your name? Marcus. Marcus Williams. Go ahead, Marcus. Marcus's voice shakes slightly. What she did, what she said, that's everything we're taught not to do. That's the opposite of what the law is supposed to be. And if you had let her walk out of here without consequences, it would have told everyone watching that the system really is broken. That money really does buy immunity. He pauses. Instead, you showed us that it doesn't. You showed us that justice means something. Even when it's hard. Even when the person has money and power. You held the line. Judge Caprio's eyes are definitely wet now. He takes off his glasses and wipes them, not even trying to hide the emotion. Marcus, students like you give me hope. The law is only as strong as the people who uphold it, and the people who believe in it. When we stop believing that justice matters, when we let money or power or influence corrupt the system, we lose everything. He looks around the courtroom, at the faces watching him. That's why this case matters. Not because of one parking ticket, not because of one entitled young woman, but because every single time we compromise on equality, every single time we let someone's wealth excuse their behavior, we chip away at the foundation of everything we've built. The courtroom erupts in applause. It starts with the veteran, then spreads to Miss Chen, then Marcus, then the handful of other observers. Even the court clerk is clapping. Prosecutor Santos stands and joins in. Judge Caprio doesn't smile, but he nods in acknowledgement. The applause fades. Judge Caprio puts his glasses back on and looks directly at the camera that records these proceedings for his show. For everyone watching this, for everyone who will see this video online, for everyone who's hearing about this case through social media, or news, or word of mouth, he pauses. Where are you watching from? I want you to comment your city, your state, your country. If you believe respect for the court system should never be optional. Not for billionaires, not for celebrities, not for anyone, no matter how many zeros are in your bank account. Another pause. He looks down at his bench, collecting his thoughts, then back up at the camera. I've been asked many times over my career why I show so much compassion in this courtroom, why I reduce fines for people who are struggling, why I listen to every story, even when it would be faster to just process the case and move on. And the answer is simple. He leans forward. Because the law is the great equalizer. It's supposed to be blind to everything except the facts. Blind to wealth, blind to status, blind to power. When people come into this courtroom, they're not rich or poor, famous or unknown. They're just people who need justice. His voice grows stronger. But that equality only works if we enforce it consistently, if we hold everyone to the same standard, if we refuse to let money or influence corrupt the process. The moment we make exceptions, the moment we let someone's wealth excuse their contempt, we destroy the very thing that makes justice possible. He picks up his gavel, holding it like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Respect isn't negotiable. It's not something you can buy. It's not something you can demand. It's something you give freely because you understand that we're all in this together. That we all depend on these institutions working fairly. That civilization itself depends on our willingness to treat each other with basic dignity. He sets the gavel down gently. Miss Ashford will have 72 hours to learn that lesson. I hope she uses that time wisely. I hope she emerges from this experience understanding that her privilege is not a shield, it's a responsibility. That those who have the most should be the first to show respect, not the last. Judge Caprio takes one final breath. To everyone watching, the law exists to protect all of us, but only if we protect it in return. Only if we refuse to let it be bought, or sold, or corrupted. Only if we remember that respect isn't negotiable, it's survival. The camera holds on Judge Caprio's face for a moment longer. Then it cuts to the side door, where Victoria disappeared 20 minutes earlier. The narration returns, solemn and final. She walked into Providence Municipal Court as a billionaire's daughter. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, an attitude that money could solve anything. She left in handcuffs. A reminder that in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, no one, no matter how wealthy, no matter how powerful, no matter how connected, is above respect. The law is the great equalizer. And on this day, in this courtroom, it proved itself equal to the task. The gavel comes down one final time. Court adjourned. Subscribe below and comment where you're watching from if you believe justice should be equal for everyone. Share this story if you think respect matters more than money.